This is from self-discrepancy theory. And then you have your actual self, where you are now. And then you have two different selves you want to work on. This is your alt self. That's your other esteem. That's your people pleaser stuff. What you think other people want from you. And would you say that codependents and people pleasers have a lot of anxiety? So that's where you are now, and where other people, or you think other people want you to be, is your ought self. Other esteem. And then where you want to be, your ideal self, would be depression. So where you are now and where you want to be on your inside, the way you think you want to be, gives you depression. Is that another common trait for codependence? Depression and anxiety. And what's the difference? When you have a giant differential between who you are now and who you want to be, you as I, who do I want to be, versus also a discrepancy between where you are now versus where everybody, what society and other people want you to be, your ought self. So inside ideals versus outside ideals. Simple. So now try to link it to Carla McLarlin, because someone thought that my hatred video wasn't clear enough, or she was trying to sabotage it because it was too clear. It's worthy of revisiting.
Your hatred is extremely important. It will show you exactly what is unfinished in you, what is unloved in you, what is unwelcome in you. Hatred is a sign of a complete loss of your boundaries. Anger.
So boundaries could be another pointer. When you get off track between your actual self and your ideal inner self and your ideal outer self, these lines of arrows, they could be boundaries. Do you have direction where you're satisfied and making progress in your life, and you're having expression and you're feeling meaningful? That would mean you have less depression. And if you have good boundaries where you're meeting society's and everybody else's expectations, you're not going to have as much anxiety. But if you have a narcissist and other people throwing random expectations at you constantly, that's constantly moving, where you're always losing and failing, you have lots of anxiety. Okay? So when you're dysregulated with outer expectations or inner expectations, what you do is you hate. You can hate yourself to create more depression, to try to motivate yourself to get more towards what you want to do, want to be. Or you can hate and blame someone else for causing you too much anxiety because their expectations are unreal or whatever. So use hate to run over the boundaries of too much of a distance between where you are now and where you want to be and where other people's want you to be. So can you link this to Carla McLarlin's pointer right here, describing how anger and shame works?
Boundaries. Anger is about the boundaries from the outside. So if people are challenging you or trying to abuse you, your anger should step up.
So anger helps you deal with your anxiety because other people have fucked up expectations for you, so you can say, fuck off. So if you have anger to say fuck off for that, we didn't negotiate that, then your anxiety goes down. But if you're a people pleaser and you don't like conflict, or you got lost in the story or something, then you can't use anger to protect your boundary between who you are now and who other people expect you to be, or other people are blaming you. You can't use anger, then you're going to have anxiety. So that's what anger is for. What helps manage depression? That's another emotion.
Shame is about boundaries with your own self, so that you aren't doing anything that would challenge or abuse others, right? Anger and shame work together to keep you upright and to keep you socially worthwhile.
So shame manages when you internally don't meet your standards or values. You dysregulate and you act out, or you're not able to meet how you see yourself or how you want to see yourself. That's why you feel shame or toxic shame, because you can't meet it, or you might have values that are just overblown, distorted. So, internal boundaries, shame. External boundaries, anger. And when that doesn't work, you have depression. Or you have anxiety. So the way out of anxiety is getting angry. And the way out of depression is exploring your shame, which is another word for empathy. Diving into your feelings to counter depression, because depression is denied expression. So learning how to express and explore your feelings and make sense of them will lower your depression, will ease your shame, will make you have stronger internal boundaries.
When hatred comes up, what it says is your boundaries are gone. This person and their evilness has come in and has broken all your boundaries.
So hatred comes when you don't have healthy shame or healthy anger to manage depression and anxiety. So then you go overboard and you do self-hate to numb your depression, which gets you out of bed and gets you motion. But then when you run out of energy, you go back to depression, because you have depression and then you have self-loathing, and then you got to find a scapegoat. So then you use your anger to get angry at somebody else, ideally. But codependents aren't so good at that. You just stew in depression and shame, and you hide from anger. Unless you're the opposite. Some people are good at anger and are terrible at depression.
And your shame is gone too, because you're willing to go out and attack back, right?
You go out and attack back, that's when you regress and you act out and you dump your emotions, or you medicate them or something. So that's shame.
So hatred is a sign of complete boundary devastation. Your boundaries are gone. Hatred is considered a part of your shadow, a part of the things that you can't accept in yourself and you demonize in others. So hatred is
what you demonize in others. And what's the best scapegoat for codependence? Any potential new narcissist, which is everywhere. That happened at an in-person meeting. I see red flags everywhere. There's narcissists everywhere. How do I make sure I don't see a narcissist? This one person I was listening to, at a moment when I was talking, her eyes became gigantic and it looked like she was going to kill me for this microsecond. Then she went back to normal. And because of this feeling of her having predatory eyes for half a second while she was listening to me, that's a red flag. She might be a narcissist. I didn't get any details on what she's saying. Something that would make someone's eyes light up. What was your story? Was the background? No, it's only that one fraction of a second that she was worried about.
Wasn't the response something like, then you'd not be able to look at everybody because everybody has narcissistic tendencies? Like, you can't go around thinking like Wakanda. Like,
that's part of what we sort of said. Like, if you look for it, you're going to find narcissism anywhere and everywhere. So you've fallen apart. You have hatred, self-hatred. You don't want to feel your self-hatred, so what you do is you want to go find people to fix, people to demonize. You're going to look for problems so you can dump your self-hate onto somebody else. Huh. How did I end up here? How do I get out of here? Oh. Okay, let's summarize this shorter. Get away from Carla. This is a summary 20 seconds.
Anger is about the boundaries from the outside, so if people are trying to abuse you, your anger should step up. Shame, boundaries with your own self. You aren't doing anything that would abuse others, right? Anger and shame work together to keep you socially worthwhile. Anger and shame work together to socially worthwhile.
Oh, this is good, that shame part. What is it right here?
With your own self. You aren't doing anything that would abuse others, right?
So this could be a nice test for codependence. When you share codependence, how they're abusing others through their wounds, their outer critic. Do they feel shame? Or do they try to cover up the shame? Because if you're a true victim, and you've been harmed by some abuse, and when you get triggered, and you act out from your shame, you're going to attack somebody else, often with the same abuse you received. Because that's how you got harmed. That's how you can inflict an injury in somebody else. So when you get reflected back that you've harmed someone in the same way that you got harmed, do you feel shame or do you cover it up? So if you cover it up, that's a narcissistic defense. If you reflect on it, maybe you can't change it, but at least if you start reflecting and feel bad, that's a more codependent or healthier person response. I don't know. It's a nice pointer.
Right? Anger and shame work together to keep you socially worthwhile. Anger and shame work together to socially worthwhile.
And that's the pointer. How do I develop relationships and intimacy so I'm socially worthwhile? So that I develop community, support, someone who has my back. So I can let my guard down and stop being paranoid all the time and looking for red flags everywhere. Is there a place I can go home or hang out with people where I can just be myself? If you don't have that, you have to develop your anger and shame to become socially worthwhile, so people find you're valuable and you find they're valuable, and then the combined community allows you to have a place you call home. If you don't have a place that calls home, then you have weird nightmares like Richard Grannon. Let's see how this transitions. Welcome, Maria. Welcome, Maria. We just started, maybe. Or we're trying to start. I don't know where this is going. But Richard Grannon.
You should open your heart. And I was like, my heart's open. And the plug went, no, actually, it's pretty fucking closed.
So when your heart is closed, that would be extreme denied expression. And in order to counter it, you laugh at it to try to take out the edge.
What?
Yeah, you said that you need to open your heart. And I was like, oh, I'm not aware that it's closed. When the heart was open, then the circuit had this like energy moving through it. And then everything that you wanted, you had. Yeah, you have everything that you want then, but you have to open your heart.
So this just came to him in a dream because he's been having insomnia again. And in order to fight his insomnia, he's praying, God is love, God is love, God is love, to help him go to sleep, even though he doesn't believe in God. But now he's praying that God is love. God is telling him, through Pierre being a plug, as a metaphor, that his heart is closed, and he needs to open his heart. Open his heart, then he can receive love. But since he's closed his heart to pain, he can't receive love.
I was like, what does that? I hate expressions like that. What the fuck does that mean? Open your heart to what?
To everything. Opening your heart to one thing is not opening your heart. That's conditional love. That's getting in the way of grace.
So I'm descending into blackness, into unconsciousness. My last sort of echoing thoughts were, yeah, my heart is actually pretty closed.
I can't fully zoom on his eyes. But in the end, I zoom on his eyes. You can see the depression or the sadness or the shock. So he's laughing to mask his depression. Because his view of himself of where he should be and where he is, that's too big of a distance. Too big of a differential. So if he's got a dream which says his heart is closed, and he has a delusion in his mind that his heart's open, that's a giant gap, which is going to cause a lot of depression. But feeling depression is going to make him spiral into shame, so he's going to laugh at it to say, it's not true, or to soften it or something.
It's a bit interesting. Yeah. So there was this thing of like pain and the need to block out pain. But as you block out pain, you shut off parts of yourself and you push away because connection with other people has brought pain. So of course you would block that.
And he even knows it right there. He blocked out pain. And by blocking out pain, he's pushing away people. So he intellectually knows the problem, but he can't link it to his open heart or closed heart. That's pretty interesting.
Pain. So of course you would block that.
Where's the compassion right here? That's a conclusion. Of course he would block it. Well, what's the price? Why don't you explore the price of blocking it right here? Insomnia. Insomnia, why? Because there's probably nightmares and all this stuff, because he's got a bunch of depression, because his actual self versus his ideal self is too big of a differential. And the pressure of his public self, his Spartan life coach image, and who he is, also has a giant gap, a discrepancy. And it might be easier to hide in his performance self here as the odd self, but then he has to live with the anxiety of being fake. So when he falls asleep, all of the discrepancy between these two selves, internal self and external self, creates depression and anxiety. Because his heart's closed.
Right. But then you're sort of hardening and becoming cold. And then you lose the connection to this other thing. The prayer that I'm doing to go to sleep is reciting, God is love, God is love. When I recite it, when I need to sleep, I go to sleep. Open your heart is very vague. I can only go off the...
Why is open your heart very vague? Opening your heart is your default state, I would say. Stop closing your heart would be an easier fix. You're actively closing. You just let go. Your heart's open. There's no... What?
I can only go off the negative of that and say, where is your heart closed? Because it is. Because it is. This calling is towards trust, towards faith.
He's got the answers. Trust and faith. Faith in humanity. And building trust. Which means you have to let people prove themselves and stick around, not just leave and erase everybody at any moment that they don't match your expectation. So you don't let people prove themselves as faith in humanity. And you don't build trusting relationships because you can disappear at a whim because of terror of negative emotions.
This is codependency, ladies and gentlemen. It is a neurotic drive, no choice, no freedom, to serve, to submit, to fawn, to supplicate. It is the terror of negative emotions in yourself and in others.
So, is it regression? Is Richard Grannon...
What we're trying to do is mask pain. We're trying to mask vulnerability. What we're trying to do is mask pain. We're trying to mask vulnerability. What we're trying to do is mask pain. We're trying to mask vulnerability.
Isn't it the same message as heart is closed?
Yeah, my heart is actually pretty closed, because it is. Yeah, my heart is actually pretty closed, because it is. Yeah, my heart is actually pretty closed, because it is. Because it is. This calling is towards trust, towards faith.
So his inner child knows the depression. Right there. Side-eye. The shame. Why is it shame? Because his ideal self, his internal boundaries between where he is now and where he wants to be, creates depression. And when there's depression, when your internal boundaries are fucked up, you feel a lot of shame. Then you can either cover it up with laughter and humor and brainwashing and affirmations, or sunlight, or boxing, or you can dive into your depression and start expressing yourself. Your depression is denied expression. Get into your feelings, journal, have communities where you can slowly be more honest and be yourself. And then you'll get closer to who you would ideally be, but also who your soul wants you to be. Because you don't know who your ideal self really is. You can make shit up. This is already sort of pre-programmed. You just have to figure out what the thread is. So, how confused is everybody? Oh, people are following? Really? Oh, so then where do I take this then? Were there some questions? Wasn't there a question somewhere? Let's see, walks in nature cover up shame instead of it exploring it. Yeah. You can get flooded by nature or get flooded by environment.
I have a question.
Yes. Throw it.
Is what he's saying, or basically this is a synonym parallel, if you will, where like in a codependent relationship that is not self-serving, whether that's narcissistic entanglement or whatever, right? There's the outside, like the ideal, right? And that could be the outside perspective that you have of yourself and what you want, right? And other people's opinion. And then there's the reality, right? Like the actual what's going on. And like you're doing this dance of this is not serving me, but I need it, because if I don't have it, then what do I have? So then you're like he said, you're doing a dance, you're basically covering it up or whatever, or what you said like at the beginning, how it's sort of not mirrored energy, but basically you're compartmentalizing it over here. Like I'll be depressed about that later, but right now I'm gonna act
be anxious
out.
Instead.
Right. Yeah, act out.
Yeah.
And then the reason why it's like, yeah, I have this person and I love them and we're great, and your eyes are sad and your heart is closed, because the more you do that, like the less your true self is able to emote, because you're basically like saying like, I'm okay with $20. I need 20. No, actually 10 is fine. You know what? 5 is fine. You know what? Actually $4 is fine. You know what? Just give me the 2 pennies. I'll be fine with the 2 pennies when actually you needed 50.
2 pennies.
And everyone
Down to
else
2 pennies.
has 50. Everyone else has 50. Everyone else has like 100. And you're like, dude, I only need 50. And like, you're walking away being like, I'm so happy with these 2 pennies. I'm so happy. It's so great. And then you go to bed and you're like, oh my God. I mean, is that what he's saying? That's kind of where I got lost.
So maybe he's saying that when you lose yourself in others' eyes, how about that? That might be better.
Right. It's like, it's more like what causes that outside, whatever the outside is, whether it's your perspective or your.
So if you want to hide from your depression, if there's too big of a discrepancy between who you are and who your deeper soul wants you to be, that's very shameful and depressing, or you don't even know who you are as a person, as a codependent. A lot of them don't have a self. So you dive into the other self, into other relationships, into other people's views of you, and you lose yourself in other esteem.
I think what I'm getting from this is it's good to be depressed as long as you transmute it.
Well, it's good to be depressed because depression means denied expression. So that means you have to learn how to express your feelings and your creative impulse. So let's go back into the 80s to one of the founders of Adult Children of Alcoholics, or Origins of Codependence.
One of the other things that I hear.
So this is a problem when you lose yourself in others. This ought self.
About adult children of alcoholics have to do with the fact that they have low self-esteem. I must share with you now the fact that I no longer believe in self-esteem as an issue for children of alcoholics. In order to have a high self-esteem or a low self-esteem, you have to have a sense of self. You have to have a sense of self. You have to have a sense of self.
So if you're a child and you have a narcissist parent who denied your expression, if you said, I'm different, I have needs, I don't like this, you got squashed, you got hammered. So then you internalize your abuser and you start denying your own expression. And then indirectly, you get highly anxious because you get lost in playing a role, parentification, rescuing, people-pleasing, into others. And then you're addicted to external supply, people-pleasing, but you're also highly sensitive to disapproval and any sort of judgment from others. That's the downside of falling into other esteem. So the pointer I was trying to sell in the in-person meeting, which I don't know if I'll get to tonight, is self-respect is a better pointer. Because self-respect sort of addresses the depression, so it counters self-hate. So when you deny your own expression, indirectly you're going to hate yourself to run over your own boundaries, because navigating shame is terrifying, so instead you'll self-hate to try to manage your depression, to keep yourself denying expression, to keep inhibiting your inner child. That happened in person, and then one person had to leave the room because she wasn't comfortable crying in front of people. So she cried outside of the room, maybe, I don't know, then came back. And because allowing yourself to feel emotions in front of other people, that feels like getting attacked by your parent. So you've learned to hide and cry in a corner or stuff your feelings away from people. But that means you have to that means you can never be real in front of other people. So that's why you need a community and people, so you can let your guard down and be real and have someone else hold the space while you break down. That's the ideal. So self-respect is sort of like this.
The way to build self-esteem is to build it on your accomplishments, is to build it on your skills. Take a moment and reflect back into your own childhood. And think a little bit about the things that you were able to do, not whether or not you wanted to, but the things that you were able to accomplish as a child that other kids didn't accomplish. It's not unusual for an 8-year-old child to take over all the family responsibilities. It's not unusual for a 5-year-old to take care of younger siblings. These are skills. I mean, many of you have decided, I'm not going to get married. I'm not going to have kids. I did that. I did that as a kid. I don't want to do it now. But when you look at skills, skills are not roles. Be careful that you don't confuse them. You may not want to play the role of parent in your life now, but that doesn't mean that you don't have the skill to do it if you choose. And choice is what makes it different. In order to build self-esteem, you need to go back into that childhood and to become aware of how remarkable you were, how incredible it was, the way in which you learned to survive, the way in which you learned to cope, and the way in which you developed in ways that other children didn't. You need to be able to give yourself credit for that, rather than just experience the pain and the horror of the fact that you didn't choose to be born into that family. That is the way that you begin to build self-esteem. You need to go back into that childhood and to become aware of how remarkable you were, how remarkable you were, how remarkable you were.
So in the in-person meeting, we didn't talk about this video, but at the after party, it was brought up that a neocon and all his siblings, they were abandoned by his parents, but his parents abandoned him with coloring books. So the coloring books allowed him an outlet and his siblings to create art. And to the surprise of his parents, he became a professional artist, and some of his siblings also are doing art. Because of the struggle of being abandoned physically and having to pass the time on their own, he developed the skill of being a professional artist now. So if you spend your time just hating your child and hating your abuser, you don't look at the gift that's in the curse, the grace that was from whatever struggle you went through, then you're just going to be hating something. You're hating a gift. You're not respecting your struggles and suffering, your accomplishments of just surviving that crap. And then it's up to you now to use your creative expression to take that suffering, that skill, and find a meaningful path into the world to share it. But that takes diving to your denied expression, diving to your feelings, diving to your shame, empathy, last week, exploring your emotions, empathy, diving in, making sense of your denied expression to get to the unmet needs. That would be diving into the feelings, into the emotions, investigating, understanding, digesting, and then sorting out through all the perspectives to identify the unmet needs and unmet gifts within your emotions, within your life struggle. And when you identify, you can now provide care and service to process them, and you get integration, meaning freedom, life force, your rebirth. So empathy and shame are both on the same axis. Intelligent use of shame is empathy. Bullying use of shame is also called empathy, but it's not. It's this.
Your self-care is an attack on me. 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 Your self-care is an attack on me.
Because if your heart is closed and the other person's heart is closed, there's not enough love. So then it's okay to run over somebody else's heart so that your heart's okay. So then you can attack people maliciously.
Your self-care is an attack on me.
In
Your
the name
self-care
of
is an attack on me. Your self-care is an attack
self-care.
on me. Your self-care is an attack on me. Your
Or
self-care is an attack on me. Your self-care is an attack on me. Your self
what would be healing just to myself, some sort of healing, what would be healing.
And I just wonder, where is the healing on this? And I just wonder.
Inconsistent empathy, inconsistent empathy, inconsistent empathy, inconsistent empathy.
And this is going to be intense, Brenda, because you missed Gabe. So, trigger warning for Brenda.
Is this supposed to be healing? 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 Is this supposed to be healing?
He seems fun.
Oh, he was.
Can we get him and Mark in a room? How about that?
Oh. I think Mark would win. He just regressed, and he just went crazy.
Someone say it right now. Someone say it right now. Someone say it right now. Someone say it right.
Ooh.
Wow.
Where is the fucking compassion to just say, wow, you know, that's what's going on in her world? Where is the fucking compassion? Where is
8:30, Act 3. How do I get this to make some sense? Oh, there's a question. The self-care thing, is this why my family can tell when I'm doing better and they start to put me off? Well, commonly when you start growing and healing, you start stating your boundaries, or you start being a pushover, you start changing, and people don't like that. So yeah, there's a lot of negative feedback from that. Because there's social pressure from what other people think to put you back in line into the old norms. So balancing out trust and relationships and navigating your anger and your shame to help you have social uprightness. Is that what Carla Martin said? This one.
Anger is about the boundaries from the outside, so if people are trying to abuse you, your anger should step up. Shame, boundaries with your own self. You aren't doing anything that would abuse others, right? Anger and shame work together to keep you socially worthwhile. Anger and shame work together to socially worthwhile.
So it's up to you to check whether it's somebody else who's imposing. That'd be anger. But at the same time, are you acting out crazy? So that's where you investigate shame and your empathy into your behaviors and your emotions to see how much you're contributing to the group problem. Anger and shame work together. You're doing better also means you may abandon them because you won't need them. They fear losing control. So yes, if you're in a triangle and your neediness is part of the equation, you don't need them, or they can't control you the same way. They will not be happy. And it's lots of fun. So how do we get to self-respect? Self-respect is hard to teach. This isn't directly on it, but it sort of reminded me of self-respect. It's kind of humorous. It's not directly a lesson. So.
I just can't believe this. Why? Well, I don't. Why would he do this? I mean, what's wrong with me?
Nothing. There's nothing wrong with you.
I mean, what the hell am I supposed to do now?
Damn it, woman, pull yourself together. Have some pride, for the love of God.
There. So sometimes instead of whining, we need someone to yell at us to say, pull yourself together. In this scenario, it's kind of twisted because Phoebe slept with her boyfriend, so that's why. But it's not the perfect example, but the message is good. See, depression. See? Her ideal self and actual self and her ideal relationship failed, so she feels depressed.
Okay, I'm not a fan of the tough love. I just can't believe that Mike didn't give me any warning.
But he didn't really know, you know? He wasn't planning on coming to Barbados and proposing to me.
He proposed to you? This is the worst birthday ever!
Look, Precious. Mike's not worth this.
Precious.
You're an attractive, intelligent woman, and let's face it, Mike's kind of a wang. I mean, he proposed to me while he was still seeing you. He was going to break up with you on your birthday. And I don't like to kiss and tell, but he cheated on you a lot this weekend.
Oh my God, you know, maybe you're right. Maybe I don't need him. I deserve to be treated with respect.
Respect?
Screw you, Mike. You're a coward and a bastard, and I hope you rot in hell.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
You see how Precious went from depression, then went to she should do better, so she got angry. So she was feeling shame and depression, and then Phoebe changed the story and said she could have to respect and do better. Then she got angry, and then she focused on getting a better relationship. So, self-respect. Can you live with yourself? Oh, this is a challenge. So, self-respect is linked to prestige. Here. Does anyone recognize Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Here's one version, here's another version. Some people say it's flipped upside down for some people. So if you're an artist, if you aren't realizing your creative expression, you can't live. So that's why some artists are poor and are able to sacrifice everything for their art. Because creative actualization and free expression is highly important to artists. But linked to denied expression and getting expression, and we've covered trust before, is esteem, which is respect, prestige, status, and accomplishment. And then this chart lists internal esteem and external esteem. Internal esteem is self-respect, and external esteem is status, recognition, belonging, and attention. So that matches self-discrepancy theory, alt self and ideal self, internal expectations and external expectations, shame and anger, depression, anxiety. So, prestige, pride, is a better pointer than self-esteem because Brene Brown doesn't like it.
Hubris is an inflated sense of one's own innate abilities that's tied more to the need for dominance than to actual accomplishments. Okay, I'm just telling y'all, I had no idea that there was anything about dominance underneath the hood of hubris.
We hate you.
But researchers write, quote,
We hate you. We hate you. We
Brene has no dominance at all. She is totally
you take this armor off, we die. We die.
not
We
aggressive
die.
at all.
You take this armor off, we die. We die. We die. You take this armor off.
Or she likes the idea that she's not dominant. Maybe
How can you
that's the
not
better
know
thing.
that hubris means dominance? It's in the root of the word.
Because you're an academic and you can spend hours playing with words.
So is she.
Unwanted
Look it
identity
up.
is the most powerful elicitor of shame.
Listen to that
Unwanted
shit.
identity
She
is
has
the
$1 million.
most powerful elicitor of
Or,
shame. Unwanted identity is
Are you fighting Brene?
screw
I'm
you,
just-
screw you, screw
anybody
you, screw
can go
you.
Google
Bring it. You think you can best
hubris.
me? Screw you, screw you, screw
Understand the true meaning of the word. And this woman is making millions of dollars because there's a bunch of sheep out there going, oh yeah, all right, hubris, that's bad. Oh, where's my shield? Where's my
But
Brene
she's
Brown?
talking about convincing herself that she's not supplying herself with hubristic pride.
underneath the hood of hubris. But researchers write, quote, hubristic pride may have evolved to motivate behaviors, thoughts, and feelings oriented toward attaining dominance, whereas authentic pride may have evolved to motivate behaviors, thoughts, and feelings oriented with attaining prestige.
Prestige.
However, to the person experiencing hubris, it feels good. They puff up and feel blustery and superior. Furthermore, the person experiencing hubris does not really care what we think.
So if you can't attain prestige and social status through actual accomplishments, you can shortcut it through bullying.
Screw you. Bring it. You think you can best me? Screw you. Screw you. So much easier to offload pain than to feel pain. Our strategy offload was pain get louder and meaner than to feel pain until you win or someone else is crying. What critical thing am I rehearsing saying to this person? What mean and critical thing am I rehearsing saying to this person?
Because you can control hubristic pride. It's harder to control prestige and respect and self-respect. That means you have to accomplish stuff and prove to yourself that you're worthy of respect. Prove to others that you have character.
Researchers found that hubris can increase levels of dominance, and interestingly, dominance, quote, does not require respect or social acceptance. Research led by Jessica Tracy found that, quote, for the narcissist, positive views of the self are too essential to leave to the whim of actual accomplishments, for they are what prevent the individual from succumbing to shame and low self-esteem. Instead, narcissists come to experience a globalized, hubristic pride, characterized by feelings of arrogance and egotism, which is distinct from the more achievement-based and pro-social authentic pride. Hubris sounds like an almost foolproof way to assert yourself in the world. No accomplishments, no respect, no social acceptance needed. Screw you. You would, however, have to hone your bullying skills and be open to being seen as an asshole. Mean and critical thing the price, in addition to the aforementioned downsides, is that folks with trait hubristic pride are more likely to experience chronic anxiety, engage in aggression and hostility, and struggle with intimate partner relationships and general social support.
Chronic anxiety. What is chronic anxiety due to? Trying to control other people too much to the point where you're trying to get constantly cheap wins so you can keep your hubristic supply or your narcissistic supply going. You're highly anxious And when you're highly anxious, you can try to bully anxiety by doing...
We hate you! 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 We hate...
So much hate. And hatred shows...
Your hatred is extremely important. It tells you what is missing inside you. Your hatred is extremely important. It tells you what is missing inside you. Hatred is a sign of the complete loss of your boundaries. It tells you what is missing. Your hatred is hatred is a sign of the complete loss of your boundaries in the presence of someone who is living out your shadow. Your boundaries are gone. Hatred is...
Ooh. So, if you listen to the self-esteem movement, they're going to tell you you're worthy and you belong, and they'll give you a bunch of validation. But that doesn't transfer skill. That's the downside. So, or they'll even say you're worthy, like this one.
I believe people would resolve conflicts without violence, that more people would dare to do amazing things. I believe that if our self-worth wasn't on the line, the world would look a lot better and more peaceful for all of us. Cultivating unconditional self-worth is an ongoing practice.
Unconditional? Really? And what does it even mean by you're worthy unconditionally? Can I be worthy even if I just breathe air and being useless? Do you know what the current self-love culture?
That's a lot in a short segment. If you're totally worthless, can you be worthy? And if everyone is worthy just because they are, then what the hell does worthy mean? We're sort of...
No. Now it's just playing with words right now. No. Now it's just playing with words right now.
choosing words to create the feeling of worthiness, but not the actual skill or social status or actual prestige and respect and accomplishment from actual social connectedness, proof. So instead, it's marketing.
Even if I just breathe air and being useless, do you know what the current self-love culture looks to me? It has morphed into self-indulgence and a giant marketing campaign for companies to sell a product. Down in 1986, John Vasconcellos, who was a California State Assembly, said...
So here's the origins in 1986. Self-esteem movement.
Set up and funded a task force whose mission is to promote self-esteem and personal and social responsibility. Millions of dollars from taxpayers' money were poured in to fund this entire movement. Self-esteem suddenly became a miracle social vaccine, as stated by Vasconcellos. Cultivating self-esteem became dominant in classrooms across America.
They would teach this.
And interactions among students and between teachers and students were designed to make students feel special, feel achieved, regardless of their academic performance. A few of these activities include chanting positive affirmation in class and playing games that have no competition and winner.
They were telling me as a teacher to a parent that it didn't really matter whether a child could spell, just so long as they felt good.
Didn't matter if they can spell, just as long as they feel good, because feelings are highly important. Actual accomplishment, prestige, skill, respect, fuck that. We'll just give you the rewards.
Contrary to Brandon's claim that there's an overwhelming evidence of the effect of self-esteem, in reality, the subsequent studies found that the correlation between self-esteem and positive social activities is insignificant.
Science research insignificant. Raising a person's self-esteem did not make any significant change in social value or social connectedness.
comprehensive study in 2003 by Baumeister concluded that there is no causal effect between self-esteem and academic achievement, job performance, and interpersonal relation. Baumeister also found that inflated sense of self-worth was present in individuals who committed violent crimes.
Violent people, sociopaths, narcissists, they have high self-esteem. They have high self-worth already. Maybe not fragile narcissists. They want that cheap validation because they can't get their own supply. But overt narcissists, they already have high self-esteem.
The holy grail of pop psychology is nothing more than a mirage. It's worth noting that high self-esteem is shown to correlate with happiness. However, at the end of the day, it's something that we earn by improving ourselves, even if it means that we have to face criticisms that hurt our feelings.
So it's something you earn, and then you self-esteem yourself with self-respect. If you can respect yourself, then you can look at yourself with esteem at actually earning and doing something, becoming an agent in life.
And definitely not by a random person on TED Talk or self-help gurus telling us that we are worthy.
Because if you rely on other esteem to feel good, a narcissist or anybody else can give you an insult to make you feel bad, because you're putting your esteem into other people's hands, which means you don't have control. And when you don't have control of your esteem, or you can't feel like an agent in life, that raises your anxiety. And when your anxiety is raised, you can follow Brené's path.
We hate you! 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 We hate you!
Well, that's tiring. And it doesn't really change anything. You still don't have competence, and you're still fighting feedback. So, Nathaniel Branden, who promoted the initial self-esteem movement, corrected himself with 6 pillars of self-esteem with a later book.
Self-esteem is the result of practicing self-acceptance, self-responsibility, self-assertiveness, personal integrity, and leading a conscious and meaningful life.
So, these pillars I'm simplifying as self-respect. Because if you have self-respect, it's easier to have self-acceptance. If you're responsible, it's easier to have self-respect. And if you have self-respect, you're able to be self-responsible. You're able to be self-assertive. You have integrity because you have self-respect. And when you have self-respect and agency and skill, you can be more conscious and meaningful in your interactions. If you just look at yourself as having a lack of self-esteem and look for ways to fill that, that pointer is short-term. It doesn't really do anything. You just attack people that lower your self-esteem. Or you just get cheap self-esteem validation from people you bully, or wherever you get it. The pathway is competence. That's the argument. But if you want to use, no, that's not going to. I was going to go the opposite direction. So 7 minutes to summarize or get takeaways. Is anyone inspired? Have we lowered the judgment about anger and shame? We'll give you a reminder of that. This is the purpose of anger and shame.
Anger is about the boundaries from the outside, so if people are trying to abuse you, your anger should step up. Shame, boundaries with your own self. You aren't doing anything that would abuse others, right? Anger and shame work together to keep you socially worthwhile. Anger and shame work together to socially worthwhile.
And when you feel socially worthwhile, you feel more stable in your relationships. And you have more self-respect for yourself because you're able to contain yourself with shame. And you're able to assert and express yourself with anger, healthy anger. And then you don't default to hatred outward, blaming, or self-hate inward when your boundaries get crushed, when your discrepancy between your external expectations versus your internal expectations get too damn stretched. That's when you follow anger and shame, you're upright. But you can do the other path. So the other path is to fall into self-care. Self-care is amazing because it allows you to do this.
Oh man, I'm so glad we decided to get mani-pedis during our lunch hour.
Right? Practicing self-care is so important. I mean, sometimes I feel guilty about it, but I just am so much more productive if I take a little bit of time to do things that make me feel better.
Yeah, totally.
Just anything that'll get you through the day, you know?
Goddesses. Last night, I was going to call my parents, but instead, I watched 3 episodes of Crazy Ex-Girlfriend. Is that bad?
No, that's just self-care. I mean, you just sometimes have to take a little bit of time to recharge yourself, you know? Right?
Angels, I have a confession.
Oh, I love confessions.
Yesterday for lunch, I was going to have a salad.
Oh, I love salad.
But I ate 13 glazed donuts instead.
Yum.
Was that naughty?
Did that make your soul feel better?
You know, it did.
Well, everybody knows that soul health is so much more important than body health. Like, that is self-care 101.
Okay, phew.
You know, a thing that I've really been into recently is that I cut my work hours down from 40 hours a week to like 0. Does that make me an awful person?
No! That is so self-caring.
It's not lazy if you...
It's so self-caring, see? So you hang out with other people who agree with your distorted reality and call it self-care and healing and validation. And you can be a self-indulgent, whatever this person is.
Need it.
I need
Oh, I have a word to describe
and
her.
I feel so much better now. And I just like basically get the same amount of work done.
Did I tell you guys that Tom and I have moved our relationship into an open status?
Shut up, stupid. Really?
Well, I'm sleeping with other people, and I was going to tell him, but confrontation makes me feel feelings, and that's like the opposite of self-care.
Feelings are the opposite of self-care.
Does that make me wet human garbage?
You cannot tell him, and you cannot stop. I mean, think about how terribly it would affect your equilibrium.
He's happier when you're happier.
Yeah. That's what relationships are all about.
That's what Oprah's always saying.
I love okra.
My women. I think I'm just gonna not pay my taxes this year. Should I just go jump in a haunted lake because I'm so morally bankrupt?
Oh no, that's a great idea.
I mean, on the one hand it's illegal, but on the other hand, think of all the amazing self-care I'll be able to do with that extra $5,000.
Oh, totally. It's the same reason I robbed that convenience store. Like, okay, you know, fine, I could have bought stuff, but shooting up the place like really filled me with a childhood joy that's so important to chase as an adult.
Oh,
Childhood
Katie.
joy.
Oh no, is that wrong, babies?
That is so self-caring. Anyway, if that was wrong, all 3 of us would be in jail for enslaving everybody in the office.
These are organic.
Self-care, that's where it's at. And when that doesn't work, because this is a lot of work you could just do, call yourself awesome, which is using shame.
He needs to stop being sad.
When I get sad, I stop being sad and be awesome instead.
See? So when you get sad and depressed, say you're awesome. Another quick fix for people who want a band-aid. Be awesome instead.
Sad and be awesome instead. True story. Whenever I start feeling sick, I just stop being sick and be awesome instead. True story. We knew we could torture Marshall because he has shame. I do not. In my body, where the shame gland should be, there's a second awesome gland. True story.
So, you have too much depression or shame, cover it up with awesomeness. True story.
Your self-care is an attack on me. 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 Your self.
Where is it?
This is what toddlers do. They throw tantrums when reality doesn't play out in the way they think it will. This is what toddlers do. They throw tantrums when reality doesn't play out in the way they think it will. This is what toddlers do.
Your self-care is an attack on me. 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 Your self-care.
For any of you who struggle with this kind of work, expect pushback when you finally set and enforce any kind of boundary.
Michelle, can you reach my phone?
Your self-care.
Your
is an
hand
attack
is right
on me.
next to
Your
it. You
self-care.
can literally reach it yourself.
You're so unkind right now.
You are perfectly capable of getting that phone yourself, Anna.
I'm not, Michelle. After everything I've done for you, you can't just reach right there and get me my phone.
Okay, I'm busy right now. Until I can't do this, I'm gonna set a boundary. I'm not gonna do this stuff for you anymore.
Wow. Are we even friends?
Shame.
I get it myself. Michelle. I can't reach it.
This is what toddlers do. They throw tantrums when reality doesn't play out in the way they think it will. This is what toddlers do. They throw tantrums when reality doesn't play out in the way they think it will. This is what.
Your self-care is an attack on me. Your self-care.
I don't have a mean finish for you, so we'll go back to... Oh, something messed with my button.